Almost live from Bismarck, North Dakota, it's the Tech Ranch with Marlo Anderson. This week, sitting in for Marlo, who's still stuck in Vegas. Must be tough. It's Miss Metaverse with the Miss Metaverse Takeover. And Katie's special guest, Matthew Waldman of Nuka, and Mike Johnson of Robot Overlords. And now, let us extend a laurel and hearty round of applause to this week's special guest host, Miss Metaverse. That's you, Kate.
Wow, that was probably the most amazing introduction I've ever had. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
How are you, Jim?
I am good. It helps that I'm getting over a cold, you know. You get that resonance going in the upper respiratory cavity there. You get those ominous rumblings, you know. Normally, I sound like Don Knotts, frankly.
Yes, Marlo is not going to be on the air today. He is in the air, returning back from CES.
Right.
Sounded like he had a lot of fun over there, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we're going to talk with him probably later on this week. And, of course, next week, I'm sure we'll devote most, if not all, of the show to talking about everything at the Consumer Electronics Show, which was pretty amazing this year.
Absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of CES, we have Matthew Waldman, founder of Nuka, here on the line with us. Matthew, you there?
I'm here. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Matthew. Yes, so
hey.
Everyone, Matthew has created Nuka, which is a fashion design brand. Matthew, tell us about your company, Nuka.
Well, I founded Nuka on techno-progressivist philosophy of bringing the revolution of interface design to wearables and to fashion. And we're going to relaunch as the premier brand that really connects fashion and technology.
Right, and you have an Indiegogo campaign that launched in September, and it's doing really well. You raised over $75,000, right?
Oh, more than $85,000. But that's a much more of a conservative product. It was a chronograph. I wanted to test the market for that type of product as well, and also to learn about crowdfunding, which is actually quite difficult for brands that are perceived as big, and we're actually quite small and independent. It was a lot of learning and a lot of fun.
Right, that campaign was to raise funds for the new Chrono watches?
Yep, exactly.
So can you tell us about the new Chrono watches?
Well, the design was inspired by the space race of the 50s and 60s, and I really feel that there's not enough attention to design innovation, especially in transportation. So there's a subliminal message in the Chrono about transportation and space exploration, but most people just look at it and see a really cool-looking chronograph, and I hope that's one of either the design itself or the backstory inspires people to buy it.
Absolutely. It definitely has like that very futuristic but also retro-futuristic kind of look to it. So everyone listening, you can check it out on Indiegogo. The campaign is still alive, and there's a lot of different rewards you can get for backing the campaign, like discounts from the watches and a lot of really neat things. So definitely check it out.
Thanks.
So
yeah,
Matthew,
thanks for the plug.
I'm sorry?
I said thanks for the plug. Yeah.
Definitely, yes. And also, you're also getting into the wearable tech market too. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've been developing a lot of conceptual approaches that we feel will capture more of an emotional connection to the products and the market. But we're small, so we're looking for the right strategic partners. I just came back on the red eye on Saturday from CES as well, we're meeting lots of people and checking out what's on the market now and what's coming up. So it's a really exciting time.
Definitely. What did you see over at CES? Did you see any really interesting technology over there?
Well, it's really funny. I didn't see anything technology-wise that I personally found interesting, because a lot of it, I remember on the plane listening to people talking about, how excited they were about the curved displays, and I had to remind everyone that those debuted last year at CES. But in terms of the wearable space, the whole idea of, people like me and other people in the tech world have been saying that you have to have this standalone SIM-carded type of wearable in order to really start doing interesting things, as opposed to products that are tethered to your cell phone. And we're seeing a lot of that coming out. but it's also hard to tell what's vaporware and what's really going to do well in the market. But opening ceremonies had that wearable jewelry piece that's selling quite well that also has its own SIM card. And there's a lot of technological hurdles, battery, and how you're connected to the cloud and whatnot that people are really trying to solve right now when you see that at CES. And I think that's very, very exciting. And hopefully we'll be able to offer something a little more compelling than what's out there already.
Absolutely. When we think about CES, for most of the people who just want to come and check it out and see like the really futuristic type of stuff, there were a couple autonomous cars which Marlo got to take a ride in, which seemed pretty interesting. And but what about robots? Today's show is about robots. So being that you went to CES, I'm interested to see if you saw any robots at CES.
Yeah, I saw some robots, but a lot of it is still, it's a consumer show. It's not an industrial show. And I think you would see things that are more exciting with robots in more of the industrial type of shows. The robots that I saw were still very much, they're still kind of, a lot of them are actually marketed as toys. And the stuff that you see at CES and other design shows that are supposed to be robotic personal assistants and whatnot, I think it's still not particularly sophisticated in terms of, worrying about things like robots coming and taking over like you've seen in a lot of dystopian science fiction. But it's definitely moving in the right direction, and it is exciting to see. I'm very excited about robots.
Definitely. And before you went to CES, you actually came straight from Japan to CES, right?
Yeah, I did. I spent New Year's in Tokyo.
Wow. When I think about Japan, I really think about that's kind of like the epicenter of all things robotics and technology. What's it like over there being in Japan?
Well, Japan, in terms of design, it's very inspiring because they're just they cycle a lot faster than we do here in the U.S. They don't wait for a CES type show to launch things necessarily. They do things. Their technology comes out more on like a fashion schedule does. There's spring, summer, and there's fall, winter, and there's just always something new to check out. Whether the things that I noticed in terms of the consumer space from just doing market research in Japan this trip is more about personal care. Lots of really strange, like ionizing face massagers and scalp massagers, and that was like the theme of the new types of products that I saw in the stores in Tokyo. You didn't see too many robots in the electronic stores, but the Japan is probably one of the most. They use robots in industry more than any other country, from what my research shows me. But you don't really, you're not going to see robots on the street if you go to Tokyo next week. Trust me.
Oh no. Well, there goes my dreams. Well, hopefully next year we'll have robots.
They do have a robot cafe that's very popular, but that's more like a Disney show.
Aw, well, yeah, I heard that SoftBank, which is like their Verizon over there, right? They're like a telecom giant. They created a robot named Pepper that is supposedly selling Nespresso machines over in Japan. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, SoftBank is an awesome company. It's one of the people that we've been talking to about trying to do some strategic partnerships, and they're investing in a lot of different spaces: wearable tech, robots, telecommunications. It's a pretty awesome company.
More from the Tech Ranch coming up next with Miss Metaverse at Supertalk 1270 and supertalk1270.com.
Right now, minus 11.
Get the app called Radio Pup for your iPhone and take us everywhere you go. Bismarck and Mandan's own Supertalk 1270.
And we're back with the Tech Ranch once again. Sitting in this week for Marlo, here is Miss Metaverse.
And we are back. Yes, and also with us is Matthew Waldman, founder of Nuka. Hey, Matthew.
Hey.
All right, so let's go back to what we were talking about before about robots. And about more robots.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, like what we're seeing is, we were talking about CES earlier, and I think everything that you see in robotics right now in the consumer space is really just putting a face or an extension on an existing technology like a tablet or a cloud service. You see Amazon launching these things. So I think that, having robots that actually are autonomous is really going to be dependent on so many different technological hurdles that have yet to be solved, and mostly how you power them. If a robot is truly going to approach what we're afraid of in science fiction, it has to be able to kind of get around on its own and figure out a way to power itself. And in that sense, I don't think we have anything to be afraid of just yet.
So what do you think might happen? I mean, there's a lot of discussion about whether we're going to reach the technological singularity where machines are suddenly conscious and like us, or on the other hand, a lot of companies now, like Google, invested in the Calico, the new company, to start doing more research into longevity and life extension. So, there's a lot of new research going into us almost becoming more like machines in a way, and almost for us to be, extending our lives for maybe another 100 years. Who knows? Where do you think that we're going to be in the next, 50 years with this type of technology? Will we be more like machines, or will machines be more like us?
I think it's going to be a little bit of both. I think we're really within a couple of years of machine consciousness, of really independent AI, artificial intelligence. But then the technological hurdle of that is, you can have a robot that might be conscious or a machine that's conscious, but as soon as its power source is turned off, what happens to that? Like, what's the definition of that consciousness? But with the singularity, you're talking mostly about there's a lot of advancements in biotech, and it's going to be a lot of genetic engineering. And I think the real convergence is going to be when you have machines that are engineered genetically, because it's just much easier to power a biological machine. It's with carbohydrates, and you don't have to have this energy delivery system. Or you figure out a way, like the way plants power themselves with photosynthesis, but then you're talking about much lower levels of energy. So I really feel that it's going to have to be more us becoming more like machines and machines becoming more like us, but it's probably going to be somewhere in the middle.
I definitely agree with you. I think that that's kind of what we're seeing right now is there's two, almost like people are either one or they're the other, and we're not seeing people really working on both at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's really quite difficult because you have there bioethics and also genetic engineering is really focused right now on disease, and a lot of robotics is really focused on the mechanical aspects of it and about certain tasks. So, and the AI part, the artificial intelligence part, is really all in software. And people trying to pull it all together. There are people doing that research, pulling it all together, but we haven't really seen any of applications of that all being pulled together yet. And there are people working on it, of course, and that's the part that's going to be the most exciting.
Definitely, I think it's going to be exciting. I hear a lot of different predictions. Some people say that we're going to start having these kind of autonomous robots in our homes within the next 5 to 7 years. Do you think 5 to 7 years is an accurate prediction?
I think it is, yeah. I mean, again, you're talking about autonomous, but the other thing is also the consciousness part. So when we're talking about the singularity or this sphere of robotics, I think it's about really, it's going to be this evolving relationship with the technology, as you always have. People are going to have to become comfortable with it, and there's going to be all kinds of interesting connections. But it's definitely, I don't think that's, I think, within 7 years, absolutely, you're going to see these autonomous robots in the home.
Definitely. I think when I think about our interview, Matthew and I actually met while I was filming my web series, Awesome Future. And one of the most interesting things that he said during our interview was that he thinks that the future of fashion might be, bioengineering. Is that what you said, right? Where you can almost inoculate yourself in a future and give yourself a sweater if you're cold in the winter?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think genetic engineering is going to be it's going to be the future. I think everything that you talk about with limits, when we talk about wearable tech, there's so many limits on the technology with how things are going to be powered. And if you can power things through your own biological system, whether it's your connectivity to the cloud and the internet, or how it is that your fashion is generated on your body. I think that is definitely something that's going to happen.
Now, when we talk about genetic engineering and fashion, what are some other examples of how these two can converge in the future?
Well, I think with fashion, in a basic level, right now what we're seeing in wearable technology is everything is designed basically for this one demographic, the programmer, this guy that lives in Silicon Valley. There hasn't been anyone giving a real effort to creating wearable tech that's going to appeal to people as a fashion item, and something on an emotional level. And that's something that, there's a lot of attention being given to now, and also a lot of attention to my brand as being a platform for that type of development. And of course, you have to see that up until a certain point, like you've saw with mobile phones and smartphones, that when the technology first comes out, a lot of it is proprietary with IP and is owned by a few companies. But it quickly becomes commodified, and as soon as it becomes commodified and any factory can produce these smart modules and these smart components, then you're really competing on brand. You're really trying to get the heart and the emotional connection of the consumer in order to have them shell out money for a product. And that's I'm really excited that that's the direction that it's finally moving in, because right now most of the stuff is pretty ugly, and that's not what my work is about.
Absolutely. Luca, your company has a really unique fashion sense, very futuristic, but also very modern, and it has a really great look. And you can check it out, too, at www.nuka.com. That's the website. And also, I'm excited to see what you guys come out with as far as wearable tech.
Yeah. I'm excited to show you. So it'll be very, very cool.
Very cool. All right, awesome. So is there anything else that you want to share with us?
Well, just, that I think everyone should be looking to the future. I like to say the future should not look like the past. I think there's a lot of optimism in that. I think when you talk about robotics, especially in pop culture and science fiction, a lot of it is negative and dystopian, and I feel that as, a fellow techno-progressivist, technological advancements always in the end benefit society. They benefit mankind. Our relationship with machines and with technology is always evolving, but it's something that we created here on the planet Earth. It's not alien, and it should be embraced, and we should always look for what the positives are.
Absolutely. The future is definitely going to be challenging, that's for sure, but it's things like wearable tech and the Internet of Things and seeing this technology actually become a part of our lives. It's the most exciting part about it, and it takes away the fears of the dystopian sci-fi type of aspect to it.
Absolutely, yeah. It'd be nice to see more positive things, it's to try to get people more on board, and especially when we're talking about, robots or even in wearable tech. It's like, we should really resist the nostalgia of the robot and really try to embrace what the possibility in the future can be.
Absolutely. One thing we talked about in the previous show was digital twins and how many of us will have our own digital twin assistant of ours that will be either in the cloud or on the web that we could take everywhere with us, almost like the movie Her, where there's an AI, artificial intelligence that helps us with our lives, but may in the future also act on behalf of ourselves as well. What do you think about that?
And that's in order of looking at like from a business perspective to see that that's where you're going to. People also, I know when we spoke before the show about will robots be taking people's jobs and those types of concerns, and it's they won't be taking jobs. We'll be giving it to them, and they'll be creating this new space and this a different type of value economy. And I can foresee the new value being authenticity, and that people really are going to be confused as to, what email response was done by the avatar and what was really done by you, and getting real connection and real time. And also like what happened in The Matrix. When The Matrix came out, it seemed so fantastical and out there, but with virtual reality, I'm sure we're going to lose a certain segment of the population to virtual reality, and then there are going to be different classes of people that are active and people that are not active, even at a much more extreme than we see now, even with the current obesity epidemic. But then again, I'm rambling. and they should have started with a ramble at the beginning.
No, but you're right, because it does all intertwine together. And you're right. But even when smartphones first came out, and we're even seeing this now, there's a lot of PSAs out there trying to get people to stay off their cell phones and be a part of society. But it's a little hard to do that now. We're all so plugged in. I think the same's going to happen with the more we have artificial intelligence and VR, virtual reality, incorporated in our lives.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, Matthew, thank you so much. It was super great talking to you. And for more information, check out www.nuka.com. And thank you so much for coming on the Tech Ranch.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Kate, we'll take a break and we'll come right back in about 3 minutes here. The Tech Ranch on Super Talk 1270 and supertalk1270.com.
Right now, minus 11.
Get the traffic and weather information you need anytime on Super Talk 1270 and online at supertalk1270.com.
And before we get back to the Tech Ranch with our special guest host this week, Miss Metaverse, I want to remind you, you can hear the podcast every week on demand at supertalk1270.com. You can also catch the podcast on the TuneIn function and on your mobile of choice via the free app from Town Square Media called Radio Pup. And once again, sitting in this week for Marlo, it's Miss Metaverse.
Yes, well, hello. We are back. And perfect. So on the line with us, we have Mike Johnston from the Robot Overlords podcast. Mike, you there?
Yep, I am, Kate.
Thank you for coming on today. We're super excited to have you on to talk about robots.
Thanks for asking me.
All right, so your podcast has been on for a couple of years now, I think. Tell us about your show, about your podcast.
Sure. Well, I guess it started we tried to do it originally in 2011, 2012, and kind of got sidetracked. But we have been doing it regularly all of 2014. It comes out every Tuesday and Thursday, pretty early in the morning, actually. So, we've been doing it regularly every day except, every Tuesday and Thursday except Christmas, New Year's, and Thanksgiving, basically.
Interesting. And what's the show about? It's called Robot Overlord, so that's a pretty cool name in itself. But is it always about robots, or do we talk about other technologies? What's your show mostly about?
Really, it's about the future and how society is changing. And it kind of grew out of a friend of mine and I with pretty different political views, pretty different backgrounds. He's a former Marine, and I'm a liberal arts college, basically. But we started talking about these kind of big ideas about how society is changing. And obviously robots is somewhat one of the big ideas that we talk about a lot, but also really we talk about anything that interests us. We're looking to have interesting conversations with people that are interested in really, how the world is changing around us.
Absolutely. The world's definitely changing around us, that's for sure. Awesome. So tell us about robots. I'm very interested in, being that you are the Robot Overlords podcast co-host, I have got to hear about your thoughts on robots today, where we're at, basically.
Yeah, we just had an author, actually, Martin Ford, who wrote a book called Lights in the Tunnel about how robots and automation and some of the software algorithms are changing the economy and really kind of driving out a lot of the potential jobs, actually. And that process has been going on for decades, really, but there's always been more jobs created. And the argument that Martin made in the book, and we talked about quite a bit in that particular episode, was that that's actually accelerated to the point where we're kind of starting to lose jobs. And really that trend, I think is really interesting, because thinking about the impact that's going to have on society, if you suddenly have a lot of people that have nothing to do, they end up dropping out of society in ways that are almost dystopian. So, it's obviously going to be a big impact. I think we're really not to the point where that's actively happening too much yet, but really that's the time to be, finding out about it and thinking about it and thinking about what maybe we could do to counteract some of those trends.
Absolutely. We were actually talking earlier with Matthew Waldman, who's the founder of Nuka, a design brand, which is really great. And we're talking about basically how people worry so much about the dystopian when it comes to the future, and that, when we think about robots, we get really, a little bit concerned about how fast our technology is evolving. And will robots be taking our jobs soon? Is this going to happen within the next 5 or 10 years? What does that mean when we say that the robots are going to take our jobs?
Yeah, well, I think that, in a lot of ways, technology up to this point has been about making a human worker better. And now that we're coming up with ways to actually put intelligence into those tools, it's actually replacing a worker. And that's a point that Martin Ford makes in his book quite a bit. And it actually was a really interesting conversation. It's our 132nd episode, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really interesting to think about robots and AI, and even the CES just happened, and we were discussing that earlier. I was talking about whether or not there was robots at the Consumer Electronics Show that really kind of made us feel like we're really living in the future, like we think about. And I think that we still have some ways to go, but it is very likely that within the next 5 to 7 years we will have robots, real robots, humanoid, fully automated, walking, talking, family members type of robots in our homes. Do you agree with that as well?
I do, actually. I'm very interested in Cynthia Breezel's project from MIT, the Jibo robot, that is really looking to be that first home robot. And I think you can draw a lot of comparisons to the first computers, the really basic ones that were just switches and knobs and spit out punch cards and things like that, to where we're at with robots now. And if you look at how fast computers improved, I think robots are just going to be amazing and very, very quickly, really.
Absolutely. I mean, we do see a lot of news coming out about robots could take our jobs, within the next 10 years. And it always makes me laugh because it seems very vague to me when I hear people saying that that's going to happen. It's like, all right, well, what kind of jobs are we going to lose? Can we be a little bit more specific as to what jobs may be automated or phased out? And I think that, with anything in techno-progressivist ways of looking at it, I think that where we're headed is that some jobs will probably phase out, just like how we used to have the telephone operators, switchboards, and things like that. We don't have that anymore, but, jobs evolve. And I think that we shouldn't look at it in this dystopian, scary kind of way. I think we should just look forward to the future, and I think that there will be new opportunities as well.
I think that's definitely true. But if you look at the impact of something like, say, a self-driving car, that technology will probably be added to trucks and delivery vehicles and things like that. And, if you suddenly had, like, all the truck drivers, that hit the job market, you can't just retrain them to suddenly be Java programmers without a pretty massive effort that it seems like society isn't yet really talking about or thinking about. And that's really the thing that we hope to do in our podcast, is just get people kind of thinking about the impacts of these things so that we can head them off. Not necessarily that, this terrible dystopian thing is going to happen, but just that it's more likely to happen if you ignore it until it actually, it actually does. It's like not having, a battery backup on your sump pump. If it suddenly rains all of a sudden and your power goes out, your basement's going to flood. But if you've got that in place, you don't have to worry as much.
Absolutely. There's always some kind of solution with these things, and I think that there will be definitely some trying aspects to the automation that we're seeing right now, but it's definitely going to be challenging, that's for sure. Another thing, too, is that I recently saw a report, I think it came out maybe a year ago or so from the World Future Society that said that maybe as much as 2 billion jobs may be lost in the next 10 to 20 years. And when I heard that just seemed like very shocking to me, because I understand that, sure, a lot of jobs may be automated, but also at the same time, I think that we're going to have to need people working to kind of find that balance between automating too much and also moving forward,
Definitely. And that is a big point in, Martin Ford isn't the only one that writes about this. There's also a really good book, The Second Machine Age. And those authors, Eric Bernolson, I think, and Andrew McAfee, I probably butchered Eric's name, but they did a Google Talk video, or Author Talks at Google, and they talked about this stuff too, and it raised a lot of interesting points about how you manage some of these transitions when the technology is improving so fast.
Definitely. I think it's really important for us to maybe read more about it and start educating ourselves about what might happen. Part of being a futurist is I think that a lot of us get too caught up into predicting the future, analyzing trends, and being in the here and now. Being in the here and now is all well and good and all, but real futurism really began with all the shocking futurists, the ones who were brave enough to kind of say, hey, this might happen. It sounds totally crazy, but it's coming, and it's preparing you for a future that maybe isn't so comfortable, like we were talking about before, about the possibility of people's jobs being automated. And so I think that it's really important for us to always be prepared for the things that might not be so comfortable for us to think about, and when it comes to the future, and especially robotics and this type of advanced technologies.
Yeah. Well, and I think the future can surprise us, too. As much as futurists have predicted things, there's an awful lot that sometimes they get wrong or that they underestimate the time frames on. The optimists tend to, overestimate how quickly something will be here, and really pessimists tend to underestimate how quickly it will be here. And usually the truth ends up kind of somewhere in the middle.
Absolutely. And another thing, too, is we're seeing a huge rise of transhumanism, the transhumanist movement. Can you explain what transhumanism is?
Well, I guess for me, it's always been related to Ray Kurzweil's concept of the singularity. And really that's just where the technological development kind of hits that exponential curve and just takes off like a rocket, where, things that in the past may have been considered almost magic or, in the realm of a comic book suddenly become possible. So I think transhumanism is a way to apply some of the traditional humanistic philosophies that have kind of led to Western democracy to those technologies, and really think about the impact of those types of abilities for the human race and how we would manage that. That's kind of how it's always seemed to me, I guess.
It's definitely a little hard to have to describe something like transhumanism just like that. But all right, we're going to go to a break, and when we return, we'll get more into transhumanism, artificial intelligence, and robotics of the future.
More from Miss Metaverse and her guest in about 3 minutes here at Super Talk 1270 and supertalk1270.com, the Tech Ranch.
Right now, 8 below.
You're never more than a few minutes from a weather update here on Super Talk 1270.
And now our remaining moments with Miss Metaverse as we get ready to wrap up another edition of the Tech Ranch on the Super Talk 1270 and supertalk1270.com. Once again, here's Kate.
Yes, hello, we are back, and joining us is Mike Johnson, the co-host of the Robot Overlords podcast. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
I'm great, Kate. How about you?
Still sticking in there?
Yep. It is,
right,
by the way,
awesome.
It's Robot Overlords with a Z, because there is actually one with an S out there as well.
Yes, it's ROBOTOVERLORDZ.FM. That's the website, robotoverlords.fm. So definitely check out the website, and you can listen to them on iTunes as well. So, all right, back to our discussion on transhumanism, robotics, and the future. So, Mike, Zoltan Istvan, he created the Transhumanist Party, and he's running for president in 2016. How do you feel about that?
Well, personally, I'm really interested to see what he has to say. I think that too often that kind of our mainstream media presents third parties as if they're ridiculous, and sometimes they are, but a lot of times they have some very good information they could add to debates. And I guess what I like about a transhumanist candidate is that they're running very much on kind of a science and evidence-based kind of platform. And I think that's important as we kind of move into the future to maintain our competitive edge in the world.
Absolutely. I think that not getting into politics here, but it's very interesting to see how third parties have been getting more attention in the last, say, 10 years as far as politics go. And I think it's very interesting that a transhumanist presidential candidate may be running for 2016. I think that's very exciting. And we are seeing a lot of news stories and media attention focusing on transhumanism and science and in this kind of world. So I think it's very, very cool.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, not to dip into politics too much, but I think that too often the mainstream media presents third parties as if you're wasting your vote. And I think that one of the great things about the internet is that it lets people talk directly to each other and find out what they think. And, when you have a third party like that, it's able to kind of get out of some of the kind of cookie-cutter politics that we've got.
Absolutely. I think we're seeing that with the internet, and as more technologies keep on coming out, including, I think, virtual reality is going to be bringing together more niche type of subcultures of people. And I think we're finding as more technologies progress, the more we're able to find and discover more people like us and even discover more of our own interests. And I think that the Transhumanist Party is a byproduct of this type of technology and acceleration.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes from recently is actually about 2 years ago on Reddit. Somebody asked the question, if someone from the 1950s suddenly, was leaped forward to today, what would they find most amazing? And someone wrote down, I possess a device in my pocket that is capable of accessing the entirety of information known to man. I use it to look at pictures of cats and get in arguments with strangers.
That is really awesome.
Yeah. And I think, we really haven't seen the impact of those devices. I mean, I'm like addicted to my smartphone personally, although I do like to put it away when I'm with friends. So.
Yeah, it's really funny too. I think about it because I'm always staring down at my phone. I have to admit, I'm like a total technoholic. I'm constantly attached to my cell phone, and I think about how we all look like little hunchbacks now because we're always staring down at our phones, And I wonder about how that's going to change as wearable technology starts becoming more popular, and are we going to be more aware of our posture with wearable technology? Is it going to change the way that we move or be in touch with our bodies? I think,
Yeah, I think there's already some interesting technologies out there that'll do that. I mean, I was looking into some the other day because, back pain is a terrible thing, and the older you get, the more it seems to crop up.
Yes, there is I think it's called Lumo. I'm not totally sure if that's the correct name of the company, but there is a back brace that you can wear that helps you correct your posture, and it sends notifications to your phone if you're slouching. So
yeah, they have Lumo has
like
two devices. They have the Lumo Back and the Lumo Lift, and I think the Lift is just a small pin that goes kind of on your front, and then the Lumo Back, I think, it attaches to your back.
Right. So, and I think that wearable technology in general is kind of like our gateway to. It sounds a little strange, but it's almost like we're becoming more like machines through our technology. Like it started off as phones, and our phones started becoming our GPS in our brains, and we don't have to think about things anymore. I mean, literally, when we're having a conversation or we forget something, we just go to our phones and we look it up. It's kind of like our little assistant brain that we carry with us everywhere. And the same with GPS. We don't think about where we're going anymore. If we get into the car and we're driving to somewhere unfamiliar, we always use a GPS. And I think that with more technologies like wearables and things that we're creating, I think that we are becoming more almost like machines in a way. And I think that we might see more technologies tapping into our human beings, like our human ways as well in the future.
Yeah, I would definitely agree, and really that's why we picked the name Robot Overlords, is because in a way human beings are becoming those robot overlords, so to speak.
Definitely. Do you think that, I asked Matthew this question before, and I'm curious what you think. Do you think that we're going to become more like machines, or do you think machines are going to become more like us? Like, are we going to become neo-humans and evolve through our technologies, or are our technologies, like our machines, going to evolve, and will there be the singularity?
I would say really both. I think it's an interesting question for society because there's a lot of, if you look at history, there's a lot of bad things that human beings have done to each other. And, I think that kind of drawing together of humans and machines, it opens up the possibility for more things like that, but it also opens up the possibility to maybe get beyond that in some ways. And so, to me, that's a really interesting change. I don't claim to have any particular answers on how that would go. I just think it's an interesting conversation to have, and that's really what got us into podcasting.
Absolutely. It seems like there's kind of a race almost. Like on one end, it's very divided. There's like those who are focusing on just the singularity, the technological singularity, which is when computers will apparently become alive or conscious or self-aware. And then on the other hand, there's also the transhumanist movement, which is those type of future-forward individuals who are focusing on researching longevity, anti-aging, bionics, becoming cyborgs, and eventually becoming more like robots themselves, and perhaps evolving humanity into something past natural, organic humans, which is very fascinating to me.
Yeah, definitely.
So when it comes to the future and transhumanism, what is one of the most outlandish and most interesting philosophies about where we're headed as far as either the singularity or transhumanism?
Well, that's a really tough question to answer because some of them are pretty out there compared to, I think, the kind of mainstream stories that we tell each other. I think that the further out you get, the harder it tends to be to describe things. But one of the neat ones that I read recently was a story by Charlie Strauss where he wrote about a robot that was specifically engineered for companionship, but there's no more humans, like they've gone extinct, and kind of how that robot adapted to the world around it with, basically its reason for being, not being in existence anymore. So it was an interesting story, and it's things like that I think are interesting to think about.
Absolutely. In 2015, we have some amazing movies focused around robotics and transhumanism type themes. There's the movie Chappie coming out, which is a film directed by the same director of, Sunshine? Oh, wait, no, that's wrong. That's Ex Machina. Ex Machina is going to be coming out, I think, in the summer. And that's supposed to be a film directed by the same director of Sunshine, and I believe 28 Days Later.
Yeah, I think that one is actually April in the States. It actually, I want to say it was February for the UK. But I'm really interested in that one. The trailer looks amazing.
Ex Machina, it looks really cool. It's about a hacker, I think, that gets hired, and they have him stored away in this house, and he has to work on this robot that's very advanced. I'm not going to give anything away, but you can check it out online. It's the trailer. You can Google it. It's XEX_MACHINA, Ex Machina. It looks really interesting. And then when I was talking before about Chappie, too, which is another great film that looks pretty interesting. Did you see the trailer for Chappie?
I did, and I'm also interested in that one. I mean, it's the director of District 9 and Elysium. And I think Elysium is one of those dystopian scenarios that we could get to if we don't think about the impact, of some of our technologies. So I'm hoping we avoid it, but it's an interesting story nonetheless, and I'm looking forward to what he has to say with Chappie. I think that those technologies are going to have even more of an impact.
Well, I think it's really interesting how that director specifically tries. He's been humanizing robots in a way that we haven't yet seen. And we saw that in District 9. These aliens, he was able to humanize like these cockroach-looking aliens in a way that we haven't really seen before that movie, I think. In that certain aspect, of course, there's been plenty of movies that have humanized aliens.
Kate, we have to wrap in about 30 seconds.
Alrighty. So, yeah, it was super great talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on today, and I very much look forward to hearing more of your Robot Overlords podcast.
Thanks again, Kate.
ABC News, Super Talk 1270. Accurate news, stimulating talk. This is KLXX AM, Mandan, Bismarck.